everyone! Work has been very hectic and I barely have any time to sit down and read. This video is basically going to be a video of me telling you the books that I have read in the past 3 months or so. It hasn't really been that many because, like I said, I haven't really had time to read. To start off, I'm going to talk about series that I have read. I'm going to get this out of the way and talk about the Sarah J Maas books that I've read. I decided to delve into the Sarah J Maas world and I am so happy that I did. So I read the ACOTAR books, and I know one of them is missing, but my best friend has it. I forced her to read them as well, and it's really worth the hype. I feel like everyone and their mother has read this series, and I understand why they're so good and so addicting. When I first started reading this book in particular, I was kind of hooked. I wasn't obsessed. I was just kind of curious as to where the series was gonna go. And then when I started reading this book, you already know, this book was the game changer and literally made me so obsessed. I lost so much sleep while reading the rest of the series. I think I would go to sleep at like 2, 3, even like 4 in the morning when I had work the next day, and I was so sleep deprived, but it was so worth it. They're definitely a 5 out of 5 star reads. The next series that I read by her as well is this thing is heavy. It's the Throne of Glass series, and these books were also a 5 out of 5 read. I honestly feel like I liked reading Throne of Glass more than I liked reading the ACOTAR series. I feel like the ACOTAR series is more of like character development, and the Throne of Glass series is character development, but there's a lot of plot in it. Honestly, it reminds me of Game of Thrones. I think that's why I really enjoyed reading that series. It reminds me of Game of Thrones in the sense that there are like dragons, but they're called wyverns in this series. But also the whole war setting in Game of Thrones, it took them so many seasons to finally go to war and prepare for battle and everything. And I feel like Throne of Glass was the exact same way. I feel like with the ACOTAR series, you get hooked right away and you want to know what's going on, and then the second book you are obsessed. With Throne of Glass, I feel like it takes a bit longer for you to actually get into it. It took me up to book 3 to be like, oh, this is really interesting, and then book 4 is when I was really hooked, and then after that I was obsessed, like could not put it down. And I also lost sleep over it. And the way you get so attached to all of the characters in ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, it's such a lovely journey as a whole. I reread Crescent City. I read it a while ago and then decided to reread it because the 3rd book in the series is coming out January 30th and I need to prepare myself for it. So I have to reread House of Sky and Breath so I can be ready for January 30th. But this book is also very good, and I feel like I don't have to really explain anything that's going on in each of the series because they're very popular and I'm sure you've heard about them regardless. And I feel like all of them have like a 5 out of 5 stars as a whole series. I reread Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros because Iron Flame was gonna come out. This is also a very popular series, so I feel like I don't really need to explain it. And I had to purchase Iron Flame, and I feel like, don't hate me, but I feel like Fourth Wing was better than Iron Flame. Fourth Wing had me so obsessed. Like, it took me a while to get into Iron Flame, but with Fourth Wing I got into it right away. I feel like I started getting more into it like halfway through the book, and then the second to last chapter was what ended me. Like the cliffhanger in this book was so much worse than the cliffhanger in Fourth Wing. If you want to see my reactions to reading this book, I did a first reaction of reading Iron Flame. It's a non-spoiler in case you want to watch it. Iron Flame was like a 4 I feel like, because it took me so long to get into it. I also read this, it's called Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. The series follows Tisana, and she is a slave. She has a bit of magic. Her owner told her that if she gathered enough money that she would be able to pay for her freedom and be free. So she has been saving up her money. She finally had enough money to buy her freedom, so she goes to the slave owner to tell him that she had enough money, and she ends up murdering him with good reason, and she has to flee so that nobody knows that it was her who did it, and so that she doesn't get punished or executed for it. So that's the gist of this series. I didn't really get into it. I skimmed the last 2 books. There's 3 books in the series. I didn't really enjoy it that much. I feel like I would give it like a 3.5. The romance literally happened in this book. It was like halfway through and it had already happened, and I hate when books do that. I need to have the slowest slow burn of my life if it's going to be a series, and not have it just automatically happen within the first book, because I feel like I get bored rather easily. I like to feel the chemistry and the little tension between the characters as they realize that they like each other, and if it's, especially if it's a series, I would prefer them to get together towards the last book or towards the end of the second to last book. But no, in this series they get together here in this first book, and I feel like I lost interest because they got together. So yeah. Another series that I read is the All for the Game series, and let me tell you that I am obsessed. I'm so obsessed with this series. Like, I love it so much, and I would literally go into a fire to save these books because that's how good they were. It's kind of hard to explain this series because it's so unhinged, and the things that happen in this series are insane. But it's basically, let me try to explain it to you without ruining everything. There's this sport called Xe, and Neil gets he gets recruited to go to a university to play that sport, and he agrees. So it follows him, and you meet the whole team and everything. But like, there's so much more. There's a lot of trauma, mafia related stuff, being on the run, and each of the members of the team each have trauma that they went through. They just work together, and there's a slow burn in this series, like the slowest slow burn of your life. Like, you don't even realize that these people are gonna be together until it slaps you quite literally in the face, and you're just there for the ride, because the tension, it was everything. The lines that they would say to each other, oh my goodness, perfection, literally perfection. So I feel like it's not a series that's for everyone, but you should definitely read it, and don't expect much from the first book. I feel like the first book, it took me till the second book to really be hooked. I feel like the first book just gives a lot of background information on Neil. Shit goes down, like a lot of things go down that are very messed up, but it's so good. Like, I was obsessed. You know those series where, like the Sarah J Maas books, where you can't put them down and you have to just keep reading to know what happens? Yeah, I also lost sleep while reading this series. It was so worth it. I would also give this series a 5 out of 5. That's how good they were. I reread The Right Move because Caught Up was gonna come out, and I just had to reread it because Ryan Shea is literal perfection, and I don't think I'll ever get sick of that book. The Right Move follows Ryan Shea and Indy. Ryan Shea is a basketball player. She needs a place to move into while she gets over this breakup, and he offered to let her stay with him because his sister kind of forced him into it. So forced proximity, fake dating, and it is so good. I feel like Ryan Shea is the god tier boyfriend. He is the most perfect book boyfriend of all time. Came out this year and I'm still as obsessed as I was when I read it for the first time. Caught Up is also part of the series, and it's the third book in it, and it basically follows Kai and Miller. Kai is a professional baseball player. He is a pitcher and he needs a nanny because he has a 6-month-old, and he obviously can't watch him while he's practicing and playing, so he needs to find somebody to like take care of his kid. Miller is taking a break from her career. Her dad is Kai's coach, and he is the one that suggests that Miller babysits his son during the season since she is taking a break. And that book was so good too. I feel like The Right Move holds a special place in my heart, and it's a 5-star read. And then Caught Up, I feel like I would give it like a 4.75 because Kai is not Ryan Shea, but he is also such a perfect man. The next book that I read was Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. It's part of the Knockmount series, and it's the last book in the series. This book is childhood friends to enemies to lovers, and it was so entertaining to read. I feel like this is my favorite book out of the whole series. It had flashbacks to when they knew each other when they were childhood friends, and it was interesting to see what had caused the rift that made them go from childhood friends to enemies. And I feel like she did such a wonderful job at showing that. And I even shed a tear or two when they were doing the flashbacks. I feel like I would give this book a 4.5. I've read a lot of series. That's what I just realized right now. But these are the standalone books that I read throughout these past few months, and it's better than the movies by Lynn Painter. This book follows Liz and Wes. They basically hate each other, and they always fight over a parking spot that's in front of their house. Only one car can park there, and they're always fighting over it and doing little pranks, and they just can't stand being around each other. There's this new guy that goes to their school, and his name is Michael, and Liz had a crush on him when they were little, and he had moved but like came back for their senior year. Michael and Wes are hitting it off, and Liz wants Wes to help her get Michael's attention so that he can take her to the prom, and they start scheming together. It was a very cute read. Every chapter has a quote from a movie, and I thought that was so cute. I would rate this a 4 out of 5. And the last book that I read was The Lovely War by Julie Berry, and it's being told through Aphrodite's eyes, the goddess of love. It follows 2 different couples during World War I and World War II, how they got together, how it was for them during the wars. It was very interesting because it felt like you were experiencing that, like the whole World War I and World War II era, and experiencing how it took a toll on the couples and how it was hard for them to be able to see each other and communicate with each other throughout those times, especially because there was no phones back then. So in order for them to reach each other, they had to write letters to each other. So it was very interesting to read about, and I would give it a 4 out of 5. I just read Sarah J. Maas for the past few months, and I'm not even mad about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!